Hi, we want to welcome you to Talking Sunday Readings, and I'm Richard Stadler, a retired pastor, and this is Father Chuck Carter and Ann Carter, and we're glad to have you with us again as we discuss the readings coming up for the 8th Sunday after Pentecost. The Old Testament lesson that we're going to look at is in Ecclesiastes chapter 1 and a little bit of chapter 2. And then we're going to be looking at Colossians chapter 3, the first 11 verses. And then we're going to look at Luke chapter 12, verses 13 to 21.
A reading from Ecclesiastes. Vanity of vanities, says the teacher, vanity of vanities. All is vanity. I, the teacher, when king over Israel and Jerusalem, applied my mind to seek and to search out by wisdom all that is done under heaven. It is an unhappy business that God has given to human beings to be busy with. I saw all the deeds that are done under the sun, and see all is vanity, and a chasing after wind. I hated all my toil in which I had toiled under the sun, seeing that I must leave it to those who come after me, and who knows whether they will be wise or foolish. Yet they will be master of all for which I toiled and used my wisdom under the sun. This also is vanity. So I turned and gave my heart up to despair concerning all the toil of my labors under the sun, because sometimes one who has toiled with wisdom and knowledge and skill must leave all to be enjoyed by another who did not toil for it. This also is vanity, and a great evil. What do mortals get from all the toil and strain with which they toil under the sun? For all their days are full of pain, and their work is a vexation. Even at night their minds do not rest. This also is vanity.
So as we look at Ecclesiastes, the question always comes up, who's the author?
I've always thought that it was Solomon.
Okay.
Kinda
Martin
says
Luther disagreed. He was willing to allow for the fact that it could have been a king of Jerusalem, a descendant of David, and it didn't have to be Solomon, but I don't think he would say you'd be wrong. And I've always assumed that it's Solomon.
It certainly fits with the end of Solomon's life. He had everything, and he blew it up.
Yeah.
I was going to say he did it up his nose, but I mean he had absolutely everything, and he ended up questioning everything.
Well, and if we look at what's in this reading, he obviously is emphasizing the vanity of material human life. And then in chapter 2, in those readings, he talks about the futility of accumulating all of this stuff only to let it go to someone else who may not be as smart or as wise and who may just dissipate it all. And so the last verse of the reading is, "For to the one who pleases him, God has given wisdom and knowledge and joy." Now that sounds like a tit for tat. You know, if you please God, then he'll give you good stuff. But to the sinner, he has given the business of gathering and collecting only to give it to one who pleases God. And so if you're a fool, you know, then this is what's going to happen. But all is vanity, even this striving after wind. So he seems to be warning his readers, if you get all caught up with all these things material, but you don't even concern yourself with God, you're really the fool. And your life is going to be a nothing. It's going to be a vapor, a wind blowing around. And I think that's a good warning for us today. You know? Is there anything else in this reading that people should look for?
I think sometimes when we look at Scripture, people will come to Scripture with a preconception that it's all nice, or it's all, you know, the Old Testament is all this war and bloodshed and violence, and it's a glorification of it, perhaps you might say. I hear that oftentimes, is that, you know, the Old Testament glorifies violence, for instance, or it shows God to be, you know, mean or whatever. I think a book like Ecclesiastes is a good book to show us the real depth and breadth of the possibilities within ancient Israelite religion with regard to how they thought about God and thought about life. There may be some kind of cynicism here in Ecclesiastes, but it's a realistic, it's spoken from someone who's experienced a lot of things and understands that, you know, if you invest too much in material things, you're going to be disappointed. And so I think it's good, you know, I think it's a good book for everyone to read and take seriously. Don't take it too seriously, I think, because you might get a little disillusioned or something.
But it's better to ask these questions when you're young rather than when you're old and you're dying. How did I spend my life? Was it just working? Was it just pursuing my own pleasure and now it's the end? And what was it all about?
And the advantage people will have if they have these readings read to them in their church services is that the gospel lesson really ties into this because it shows a man who has all this material wealth. He doesn't ask the right questions at all. Right. Yeah, all he's concerned about is me, you know. And so maybe that gives us a reason to hurry to that reading by going to the Colossians reading in chapter 3, verses 1 to 11.
Right.
A reading from Colossians. If you have been raised with Christ, seek the things that are above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your mind on things that are above, not on things that are on earth. For you have died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is your life, is revealed, then you also will be revealed with him in glory. Put to death, therefore, whatever in you is earthly, fornication, impurity, passion, evil desire, and greed, which is idolatry. On account of these the wrath of God is coming on those who are disobedient. These are the ways you also once followed, when you were living that life. But now you must get rid of all such things: anger, wrath, malice, slander, and abusive language from your mouth. Do not lie to one another, seeing that you have stripped off the old self with its practices, and have clothed yourselves with a new self, which is being renewed in knowledge according to the image of its Creator. In that renewal there is no longer Greek and Jew, circumcised and uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave and free, but Christ is all and in all.
What good will happen to believers when Christ comes back? That seems to be one of the concerns that he has in this reading. And a lot of people dread the day of judgment, but there's no reason to, because when Christ comes back, he's got great gifts for people that is reinforced throughout their discipleship.
That verse 4, when Christ, who is your life, is revealed, then you will be revealed with him in glory. Christ's return coincides somehow, it seems like, with our own fulfillment of some kind, that that we will be revealed with Christ when who we truly are, our true identity, our true nature.
And so when Christ. He comes back, those good things should motivate how we act in the meantime.
Sure.
And then he gets very specific here. Put to death sexual immorality, impurity, passion, evil desire, covetousness, which is idolatry. And that covetousness is something that Jesus is going to talk about in the gospel lesson. You must put them all away: anger, wrath, malice, slander, obscene talk from your mouth. Don't lie to one another. Put all these things, And the motivation is because you know Christ is coming back, and not out of fear that you're not going to be acceptable if you do these bad things, but out of appreciation for what he is giving you. And so now let that influence your choices and what you decide to do, because all of us can decide either not to be angry or to be more forgiving. I mean, that's a choice that we have. And some people, I think, hand that choice away.
Yeah. Yeah.
James Dobson had a great line in a radio broadcast of his years ago where he said, you know that you can be in charge of your feelings, because here's this mother whose child has just dropped a whole bottle of milk on the kitchen floor, and she's ranting and raving, and the phone rings, and she says, hello. Now, she could have made that decision earlier, She didn't have to let herself be consumed with the venting and the vehemence. And I think that's true of all of us.
Absolutely.
But we tell ourselves the lie, and that is, I can't help myself, As a Christian, you're a sinner saint, so you've got a new nature that can take over. You just got to give them a chance,
True.
It doesn't mean you're going to be 100% successful, but it does mean that you do have a choice, and you can make those choices.
Yeah.
So anything else in this reading before we go on to the words of Jesus in the gospel? Then let's go to Luke chapter 12, verses 13 to 21.
The Holy Gospel according to Luke. Someone in the crowd said to Jesus, Teacher, tell my brother to divide the family inheritance with me. But he said to him, Friend, who set me to be judge or arbiter over you? And he said to them, Take care, be on your guard against all kinds of greed, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of possessions. Then he told them a parable. The land of a rich man produced abundantly, and he thought to himself, What should I do? For I have no place to store my crops. Then he said, I will do this. I will pull down my barns and build larger ones, and there I will store all my grain and all my goods. And I will say to my soul, Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, be merry. But God said to him, You fool, this very night your life is being demanded of you, and the things you have prepared, whose will they be? So it is with those who store up treasures for themselves, but are not rich toward God.
Where he warns this man who comes to him, wants him to be a fixer, and I want you to do things my way. My brother is not sharing the inheritance, and rather than being concerned about the brother and his relationship with his brother that apparently he's upset about, he just wants Jesus to make his brother give me what I want, and it's just materialistic, and we know that because Jesus then says and warns him against covetousness. And so what he's doing is seeing in this man's heart something you and I can't see when someone talks, and that is he's got covetousness. He's just greedy, and he's more concerned about things than about his broken relationship with his brother. And Jesus didn't come to give us what our heart desires at its most material level.
And he's more concerned about greed than establishing any kind of a relationship with Jesus, because he tells Jesus exactly what he wants him to do.
Yeah.
He doesn't come to ask Jesus advice or to
That's
ask
right.
him to help him through it. He says, I want you to do this for me.
Right.
And he doesn't even say, I want you. He says, do it for
Yeah.
me. He demands it of him.
Yeah, he sounds like in another story in the Bible where someone, the prodigal son when he comes home.
Right.
Make me, as he was planning to say, make me one of your servants and I'll make money back. And there's no questioning, and that's a good thought that this guy fails right at the start with his attitude. But now to the big barn guy, okay? He's gonna get all this wealth. He's so consistently self-absorbed.
Yeah.
It's my grain, my goods, not God's. God didn't let me have these good crops, my barns, and I'll say to my soul, and Ken Bailey, our favorite insight, gives something really interesting on this verse. He says, he is so isolated, he has no one to talk to.
Yes.
He only talks to himself. And normally in Middle Eastern culture, when you had to decide to do a building project, you would talk to your friends, talk to your family, and get input and so forth. This poor sap has no one in the story. And Jesus makes him look that way to show how isolated he is and how out of touch he is with God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to further that, at the end, when God says your life is to be demanded of you, and the question is, whose will they be?
Yeah.
Because there's nobody else in his life.
That's right.
So he doesn't have children he's going to leave it to. He doesn't apparently, there's nobody there for him. And he has given up everything for money.
And we don't have to guess as to what the point of the parable is because he gives it to us in the last verse. So he says, so is the one who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. What's really striking is that the one question he never asks from this windfall of all this produce, I wonder if there's anybody in my neighborhood who could use some of this.
Yes.
Jesus intentionally makes him just unbelievably
yeah.
Yeah, he says,
self-absorbed.
what should I do?
Yeah.
You should give it away.
Yeah, why not share it? Why not look for other people that you can help, with your windfall, and so that's a good reminder to all of us, too, that when good things happen to us, sometimes we're tempted to just really enjoy it and use it for ourselves and hoard it, rather than say, well, maybe God let me have this so I can use it to help someone less fortunate than myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good reminders in these readings. Anything before we...
Well, I just thought it was an they are all tied together. Sometimes I don't see them being tied together, but Ecclesiastes talking about looking for God,
Yep.
and then Colossians 3:1, seek the things that are above, and Luke 12:21, they are not rich toward God, that you store treasures for yourselves in heaven, not here. And they all, and it's, again, we've talked about it, it's a growth process, and you fail one day, but you work at it again the next day, and you keep trying, and you look out for other people besides yourself.
Yeah, these readings have a really neat thread that ties them thematically together. Yeah, and people could look for that when they listen. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. I want to thank Tim Carter behind the camera, who has put these together for us, and also want to thank you for watching. And if you found this worthwhile, please share them with your friends, or put them on Facebook, or like it and subscribe. But thanks for being with us. Look forward to seeing you next time.